Hey friends, Ash here with Gents. Hope that you're doing well. Today I'm going to be going over a fragrance that is an alternative to a really expensive, really popular niche fragrance. That fragrance is this Oud for Greatness. This bad boy right here runs retail, I believe, $385 for a 90 ml. So right at about $400. It's not cheap. The alternative is this one, Afnan Supremacy in Oud. And we'll also talk really briefly about this one, Oud for Glory. Can you tell it's a clone? Well, I gave it away. I'll show you guys the presentation of the Afnan, break the fragrance down, give you the price comparisons, the performance, all that stuff. So let's jump into it. So yeah, like I said, Oud for Greatness. It ain't cheap. If you want it, you're gonna have to pay up. And this bad boy is probably the most hyped, most popular fragrance from the house of Initio. There are a couple other fragrances that are really popular from the house also, but this one I believe is at the top. And actually, I've got all three of these fragrances on right now. I've been wearing them for the last couple days, and my wife has noticed. I think in a positive way. I think, or at least as positive as can be when she says, "What do you have on?" And then you answer and she goes, "It's really strong." Well, thank you. It is. So in case you're unaware of Oud for Greatness, this is obviously an oud fragrance, really well known for having great performance and being pretty wearable, even though it is an oud scent, because oud sometimes can turn people away. They think it's going to be funky, animalic, smell like butt, smell like poo-poo. You know the drill. But Oud for Greatness, not so stanky. Let's kick things off officially looking at the presentation of Supremacy in Oud. Now, this is from the more premium collection from Armaf as far as the Supremacy fragrances go, so it has a nicer presentation, which I actually really like. So as this slip cover, which has the name of the house, name of the fragrance on the front, it has this nice textured design to it. So when you rub your hand over it, you can feel the fleur-de-lis. On the back, you have your ingredient information and your badge code right here. On the bottom, nothing. So you take the slip cover off, and then you have your box. It's got kind of a shiny plastic feel to it. It does look nice though. Again, name of the house, name of the fragrance on the front here. You have the ingredient information on the back. Once again, it is an extrait de parfum in terms of concentration. Afnan on the side opens up eventually. And then you have this little gold card, which you have to kind of flop out. And then on the inside, you have this basically kind of felt covering that goes over top some foam. Bottle sits down inside there, and you have a little note on the inside of that gold card. Honestly, it's a little bit hard though to read. Yeah, it's got some stuff talking about how the Supremacy line is good, basically. And here we have the bottle. This is the same style as all the other Supremacy line fragrances. It has a nice gradient, so it's got kind of a rich bronze brown coloration going into gold. Nothing on the back. On the bottom, you have your sticker. On the top of the cap, it says Afnan, and it does kind of click into place. Not exactly, but kind of. And I'll go ahead and waste a couple sprays for you guys, like always. There we go. Atomizer is okay. It's not amazing, but it's okay. And we'll really quickly look at the Oud for Glory presentation as well, because that's kind of a competitor, I guess, to the Afnan Supremacy in Oud. So here we have the box for Oud for Glory. It's a lot simpler. You just have a little plastic window, opens up like so, and your bottle sits down inside here. It's got a similar kind of feel to the inside of the Afnan box, where it's kind of this felt or faux velvet that goes over top of foam. You have a little certificate of authenticity up in the corner there to make sure that you got a real deal Latafa Oud for Glory. And then on the back, you have your ingredient information. And this one is an eau de parfum. And then here we have the bottle, which is the most obvious knockoff of all time. Got the real deal over here, and then the Latafa over here. Right. One thing I will say is that the atomizer on Oud for Glory is the worst of these three fragrances. I'll go ahead and waste a couple sprays. Maybe you can tell over camera, maybe not. Yeah, it's not very good. In terms of note breakdown, Supremacy in Oud, Oud for Glory, pretty much the same. They've got saffron, nutmeg, patchouli, musk, and of course, oud, along with a little bit of lavender, I believe, as well. Not that that's a focal point or anything. So in terms of smell, I'd say these are both really, really good clones. What's interesting about it though is if you haven't smelled Oud for Greatness in a while and you spray on either Oud for Glory or Supremacy and Oud, you'll probably think, wow, this is like 95% accurate. Like, this is really close. That's what I felt the first time I sprayed these on. And then I actually wore them side by side with Oud for Greatness. And I was like, oh, no, actually, this is a pretty decent difference. More so a difference that people who are really into fragrances will be able to tell it apart though. I'd say your average everyday person, even side by side, would be like, nah, they're really close. So, Oud for Glory, Supremacy, and Oud. I actually prefer, personally, Supremacy and Oud a little bit. When you first spray these on, it just feels like Supremacy and Oud has a little more liveliness to it. It is a bit sweeter. So if you're not into that, you know, that aspect of Oud for Greatness, maybe Oud for Glory would be a better alternative. But I actually like that additional little bit of sweetness. You get more saffron that comes through in Supremacy, and Oud really makes itself known right away. And it kind of commands attention a little bit more. It cuts through the cold a little bit better for me. Probably not a huge surprise because Supremacy and Oud is an extrait de parfum compared to the eau de parfum concentration of Oud for Glory, but it does seem to just work a little bit better, push out a little bit more in the opening especially. You get that very familiar kind of sweet washed over oud note in Supremacy and Oud. Comes through pretty much right away. It's that style of oud that, you know, it maintains that darkness, this faint edge of, you know, that stronger animalic nature that oud can have, just barely, you know, wrapped around the edges of the wood, but concentrating more on like this dark kind of, again, sweetness. And then spices are interspersed all throughout in the opening and the mid. So again, for me, Supremacy and Oud has the superior opening to Oud for Glory. Oud for Glory's opening isn't bad. Like I said, it's pretty close to Oud for Greatness. It's just, it doesn't have that kind of effervescent sparkle, that kind of jump off your skin that Supremacy and Oud has. It doesn't smell like ginger, but it's reminiscent of how ginger can work in fragrances, how it can make citrus just come alive and jump off. Saffron is doing that in this one, and it does it well. As it hits the mid, they do start to even up a little bit more, but I still prefer Supremacy and Oud. I think that the oud note that's in that fragrance is just a little bit livelier, a little bit more attention grabbing, like I said before. And then when you hit the dry down, they both take on kind of an interesting aspect that you're not going to pick up in the air. You kind of have to get close and give it a whiff. Oud for Glory starts to take on this very slight, almost rubber accord. And again, you have to get pretty close to pick it up, but it has this kind of rubbery feel to it at times. Don't think it smells bad, but it's a little bit different. And then Supremacy and Oud, instead of having a rubbery type of accord, it actually starts to smell slightly like varnish. And you have to get really close again to pick that up, but kind of a wood varnishy type of feeling, type of smell as you hit that far dry down. So as I said before, both really good alternatives to Oud for Greatness. This one is going to be a little bit sweeter, have more of that kind of again, effervescence to it where it jumps off your skin. This one a little bit livelier. This one, you know, a little bit darker than Supremacy and Oud is. A little bit heavier feeling overall because it doesn't have that kind of jump. Now, I'm not saying performance-wise that this crushes that. That's not what I'm saying, but it just comes across feeling a little darker, a little heavier. In terms of cost, Oud for Glory is going to be the cheapest of the bunch. This one you can typically find in that mid $30 range up to, you know, 40 or low 40s. In that range, you can typically find this one. Supremacy and Oud is sometimes a little bit harder to find. And in terms of price range with that one, you're looking at probably mid 40s up to, you know, 50 or low 50s, somewhere around there. And like I said, this one at retail, almost $400. And that's for a 90 mil. Both of these are 100 milliliters. So you get, you know, just a little bit more, that extra 10 milliliters. So I think if money is no question at all, then you just go with the Initio. It is going to smell the highest quality of the three. It's going to be the best blended of the three, and it's not going to have any of those potential off-putting moments where it dries down and maybe you pick up a little something like that kind of rubbery feel or varnishy feel, and maybe you go, I don't like that so much. For me personally, it doesn't bother me, but some people it will. So if you want to avoid all that, money doesn't matter, just pick up the Initio. But for a lot of people, $400 for one bottle, that's a tough proposition. That's a lot of money. So it comes down to which of these is the better buy. And for me overall, it is gonna be the Afnan. This is the one I would go for. That being said, this one is gonna get you closer in terms of the look of the bottle. And for the price, you know, it's like a 1/10 of what Oud for Greatness costs. It'll get you 90% of the way there. So you got 10% cost, 90% for the fragrance. You put it together, it's 100%, baby. Yeah. Let's talk really quickly about performance, I guess. Oud for Greatness, monstrous. Stuff will last forever, project heavily. Supremacy in Oud projects really well. I'd say for the first 2.5, 3 hours for me, it projects very well. It lasts for a long, long, long time. 12 hours or so on my skin, no problem. I sprayed that on before bed, you know, like a couple hours before bed. Woke up the next morning and I could still smell it really well. Oud for Glory, also very good performance. For me though, not as good as Supremacy and Oud. Part of that could be because the atomizer on Oud for Glory is not as nice. You know, it kind of does a wimpy little it's like you're getting spit on by an ant. And the Afnan atomizer is not great, but it's better than that one. So keep in mind that could play an effect, because, you know, when I'm wearing these side by side, I don't want to spray one of them, you know, 4 times, and then the other one I go, well, this atomizer sucks, I'll spray it 8 times, because it, you know, it gets kind of wonky. But Oud for Glory, it does project well. It does last a long time. It just does not project as well as Afnan's, and it doesn't seem to last as long either. Of the 3 in terms of performance, I would rank it this one number 3, this one number 2, and of course this one number 1. In terms of seasons, I know this is gonna blow your mind, mainly winter, also fall though, especially, you know, the latter stages of fall. And in terms of daytime or nighttime usage, it's gonna lean more toward nighttime use. Now, as I've said a million times though, if you like the fragrance a lot, if it gives you confidence, wear it during the day too, who cares? Just be aware of your surroundings, and because these are really strong, maybe dial it down a little bit as far as sprays go. Because I can tell you, when I had on Supremacy and Oud just by itself, when I was wearing that one before I started comparing it to these other 2, I had already had it on for a few hours, and my wife came home. I went outside to meet her, and the wind was whipping around a little bit, and she was probably a solid 20 feet away or so at the car as I was coming up. And she was like, what are you wearing? I can smell it over here. Of course, wind and everything, but that lets you know it's there. It's there. If you go nose blind to it, it's still there. So there we go, guys. Some alternatives to Oud for Greatness and my choice. If I could pick just one of the ones that I've smelled on the market so far, it would be Supremacy and Oud, but Oud for Glory is not that far behind. And there's also one that was done by Riffs that I've featured on this channel before, and that one's not as good. So I wouldn't even mess with that one. If you're looking for an alternative, get one of these 2. All right, guys, that's gonna do it for me. Thank you for hanging with me today. Thanks for all your support. Stay safe out there, and I'll see you guys tomorrow with another fragrance video. See you later.